Hey guys, happy Friday! I have a super special guest that's coming on today. His name is Mr. John Morris, and I am so excited to introduce him to you guys because he has so much going on. Um, he's got books coming out, he has art, he has podcasts. I mean, it's just never ending. Mentoring services. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes. So, for one, I hope y'all are having an amazing Friday. Stay safe if y'all are going out to do stuff later on. And yeah, let's bring in John. Let's get rolling. And I can't wait to introduce him to y'all because he truly is fabulous. Hey, my friend, how are you?
I am doing very, very well. How are you?
Fabulous. It's so good to see you.
And you?
Thank you for being patient with me. I've been trying to get John on for a while, and it's been my fault, I think, every time. Oh, I love what you got going on behind you. That's beautiful.
Was doing a show a couple of weeks ago and it was streamed, I think, on StreamYard. So basically, we had a green screen that was behind me, and I was just like, I'm so glad that we're doing it on Zoom today. Well, I was waiting on you. Because we'd used the old design of the blue background and the phoenix. And I was like, I really like this because this is now more embodying of who I am and where we're going to now and what we're doing. So I was like, yeah, this is really cool. So it's you're the first show that it's out and live on, so it's really cool.
I love it. I love it. So I gave you a sweet little introduction,
Thank
but
you.
you have so much going on. I don't think I did it justice. So I want you to kind of tell everybody a little bit about what you have going on, and then we'll touch base on it.
It sounds good. Gosh, so many amazing things are going on right now. I don't know what JoJo had shared, but I do many, many things, and I think I can sum them up in three areas, which is an artist, an author, and a mentor. But I study a lot of things because at the end of the day, there's so much crazy stuff that's going on in the world right now. I think, the more that people know and the more that they're actually aware of not only themselves, but really what's going on in the world, the more that they can actually almost live, dare I say, a very stress-free life. And I know a lot of people, switch off at that point because they just assume now that, stress is just a part of life, the same as anxiety and depression. Let me tell you, folks, at the top of the show, these are not normal things and they should not be treated as normal things. But it's what society is deemed, you to believe. But I'm sure we'll touch on that later on. So, as Jojo possibly said, I'm an author of self-help. I'm an author of historical fiction. I'm an artist of just about everything that there is. And if there is an area in the creative industry, I am probably in there somewhere. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're amazing. John's actually going to do some paintings for us here too, and so I can't wait for
Can't wait for
that.
that. That's
I
exciting.
know. So how long have you been painting for?
I have been painting now, coming up on 17 years, I think it is. So I started when I was 17 years old. I was out of work at the time, and I sat watching TV, and Bob Ross came on the TV, and I was like, wow, that looks like something that I could invest my time into. That looks like something really cool. And, began the way that so many others do, which is you just begin, you just start practicing. I loved and still love to this day Oriental style of art, and that was one of my first paintings that I ever did. Was in that style, very, very simple, very beautiful. And then it just really built and developed from there. And I found that I loved doing nature scenes. And John Denver, who was a musician in the 70s, 80s, 90s, his music could capture audibly what I was feeling, on canvas. And that was a big inspiration for me for a lot, certainly for earlier on in my art career. And then it was just like, okay, this is something you want to do. This is something you're really passionate about and that you enjoy. Let's figure out how to make it happen. And that's what I started doing at 17 years old. It was just like, okay, let's you don't want to work a 9-to-5 job. And I made that decision very, very early on. But at the same point, it's like you want to do something special for yourself. And that's really where it began for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, were you very good when you started?
See, that's the thing. I get asked that a lot, and I always say with artists, the definition of good and bad is so subjective. If by definition what you mean is, did what I paint or what I painted look like what I had in my mind, then yes, I was very, very good. If you're saying, was I a technical whiz that could, sit in the institutions in China and Japan, then the answer is no. And at that point, probably still not, because it's a very different discipline out there. But for me, I took to it like a duck to water. And I still do to this day. I don't paint nearly as much as what I used to do because I'm doing so many things now. I spend more of my time doing custom work, but I was talking, in fact, with a lady just before I came on that I'm looking at doing more of the original artwork again, really this year into the next couple of years, for sure. But I just kind of go almost on the breeze and just, wherever I'm being led and whatever it is. And what I love now with my books is that I'm able to combine, my paintings and the books together. Which is a tremendous amount of fun. And I don't think a lot of people have really thought, hey, you could actually be your own illustrator and you can do a lot of stuff. But yeah, there are times that I look back on old paintings and I'm like, you can tell that was, very, very young artist. And I'm sure, 20 years from now, I'll probably do the exact same thing. Same with writing, same with anything.
You're wonderful. You're wonderful. I love it. I love it. And you're right. Not very many people think about being their own illustrator. When I think of people being their own illustrator, it makes me think kind of like children's books, because, I have a child. But I'm sure, I know that yours are definitely not just for children's books.
No.
Okay. So your books, you already have some released, and you have one coming out in November, right?
Yes, that is correct.
I'm so excited. Tell us about it.
The books that they're out, it was a suggestion that was made to me by a former team member of ours, during lockdown. What if had I ever thought about writing a book, and what if we actually did this? And I had done before, but again, because I'm now a very different person to what I was 2 years ago. And I sat there and it was like, okay, is it in the realms of possibility? Well, of course it is. If you can think it, you can do it. And there is nothing that you can touch, see, taste, smell that hasn't started from a thought. It all originates from a thought. Hence why I'm studying for a doctorate in psychology, because, your mind is very, very powerful. So the really interesting thing for me was, it wasn't even what I would write about. Before I went through all of these incredible changes, it was like, it was there. It was like, okay, the series is called The Battles We All Face. I couldn't settle on a title for a long time, even after the book was finished. And I sat there and I thought, what is the core essence of this book? And that's when it came to me, again, divinely, it's The Battles We All Face. So the book that's out on Amazon now, and it comes in 3 different formats. It's like foods. It comes in 3 different colors. And it was like, okay, let's put this in as many different ways, but let's make each one as unique as possible. So I took my original artworks and I combined them into this book because the psychological point of it is you may not remember everything that I write on anxiety, but if you remember the image, guaranteed you're going to have a trigger which will remind you something of what the title or what the topic is talking about. And it was a really, really simple thing. So I just started doing that. And again, I went with a very different look for the book as well. And that's part of the reason, even the way that I dress and the way that I present myself, you have a lot of people that do these podcasts, a lot of people that do these shows. And nowadays it's like, how can you stand out? How can you be so different that it really makes heads turn? So the front cover is me in a suit of armor. And we explore 40 of the most, I guess, common issues and battles that people face all around the world. It ended up being our bestseller, and we explored everything from anxiety to trauma, letting go. How do you move on basically when you've lost everything? And again, in the words of Rumi, I never write about something that I haven't firsthand experiencing. So that really, was the first, the catalyst that started to spark all of this stuff. And it was like, okay, well, that's great. That's nice. You've got your book out, and it's in fact, there we go. It's on the other side. There's the front cover, folks, if you're wondering what it looks like. And it was like, okay, that's great. The amazing thing I think that happened then, certainly in January of last year, divine transformation is the only way that and I wasn't looking for it. It happened, it happened. And there was a lot of stuff that went on. I know as JoJo and I have talked about numerous times, and all of the stuff that I was dealing with, all the stuff I was battling and all of that, for me, after encountering Wayne Dyer's teaching, his everyday wisdom, in 2 hours, it was gone. And that did something to me in my mind where I switched on, and I was like, the mind is the core essence of every single thing you do. The reason that the world is having so many issues right now is because it's a reflection of their inner state of mind, and people don't even know what's going on. So I'm going through all these amazing changes, and I took January and February off last year. Just took them off straight, and I just sat and I listened, and elevated my mind, and just really started going through these amazing things. And I think it was maybe in May that I got into bed, and I was like, something's kind of bubbling up inside me. There's another idea that's happening. It's going on. And I began to write my first novel series, which is historical fiction. And originally it actually came because we were struggling to market my artwork in 2017. So someone said to me, well, what about if you actually painted historic pieces? So I was like, oh, that's great. But what about if we did this and this and this as well? And it just really built. And I knew that I wanted to do books potentially, but this divine mind literally sat me down, and in 11 days, I wrote from start to finish the basis for this historical journey this work of historical fiction from start to finish. And I'm now going back through it, and with my wife, we expand on it. And it is actually amazing how it has unfolded, how it's, told the story, and it's stories that really happened. It's not sort of the fluffy, hairy, fairy things. And it's some stories as well that's getting written out of history for one reason or another. So I am so excited about it. And it's now for historical fiction, it's a series, it's a series of 13 books. And for the self-help stuff, it's going to be a series of 5. I'm looking at the board. It's a series of 5, with the next one being the battles that teenagers face. So I hope that was clear for everyone, because I know I was covering a lot of things there. But I'm so excited about it. I'll be glad when it's done, but I have loved mentally being back in the time periods and stuff. And it's been incredible.
Well, I know that you have been working on it, because every time we talk, it's like, I'm writing, can't talk. No, I'm just kidding. But you won't tell me anything about it. So I am on pins and needles too.
You're not the only one. I have a lot of people asking about it. I suppose in what I can tell you about it at this point, just to let little, snippets out. I started thinking about, when all of this came about, I was like, originally it was going to be an art history docudrama that we were going to package as art teaching. As I started thinking about this for the books, it was like, okay, where do you want to go with them? What do you want to do? And I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if you had an artist that had the ability to be able to go back in time? And I thought, well, who do you know better than yourself? So I am literally the star, I suppose, or the hero within my own book. And I thought it makes complete sense because I know, and I refer to myself almost in the third person when I talk about this with anybody, but I know what John would do. I know what John would think. I know, how he would respond to certain situations. And I started to play with that. And then when my wife asked, a couple of very, very profound and very, very clear questions, I was like, okay, what could we do here to really, really develop this? And that's what I've been working on now since, I think maybe even September last year, since we started the editing process. And the whole story just exploded and skyrocketed to the point I was like, wow. So basically after, again, just to give a little bit away, after a series of really horrific things, John actually finds himself very firmly in the past. I'm not going to say where just now. By the way, we've got the front cover done. It looks immense. And just so you know, folks, I design everything myself. So if you've got any problems, bring it to me. Yeah, the front cover looks absolutely phenomenal. And but yeah, he finds himself back in the past. And, I know what I was like when I moved to Scotland in real life. And I was like, how would I fare back in this time period? And a lot of writers come out and they say, well, he just gets on with life and it's all amazing, it's all wonderful. And I'm like, but mine wouldn't be, because I know I was really anxious. And I'm writing about me from, 2019, 2020, before I went through all of these changes. Which makes for a much more exciting book. But he does, he meets somebody, and of course, every good story has got several key things that it has to have in a book in order to make it work. And you can look at that through films, you can look at stories, books, everything. Every single one of these things is in there. And I was like, okay, we're onto something now. And then the adventure starts and it ends up, just when you think that, it's going to, end and be all, amazing and everything, it changes and it takes on a very, very, very different turn. And I'll be able to tell more when the books are out. But hopefully that's a snippet for people, just so they get a feeling.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So what was the date? November
17th, 2022 is the date that we are going to be releasing the first one, all being well. Oh, I should also mention, folks, that if you are interested and you followed my artwork or anything like that, there will be artwork in this book series that will not be seen anywhere else. Certainly not for a very, very long time. So the only way you're going to actually get to be able to see it is by buying the book.
There you go. There you go. Let me not just say that that's very important just to be able to see it, but on John's behalf, that's a very genius idea to work as well. So you'll find that I say that often when I talk to John, just be like, oh, that was genius. Okay.
Well, as I said to you before, when people ask, and I say it in all sincerity, and humility, I do say I am a genius. Now, the reason being is not because of obnoxiousness or anything like that. It is because literally that is the mind that I desire to have. And I think sometimes people really put themselves down, and they say, well, they're not that good at that. They're not that good at this. And I'm like, I am a genius and I'm fully capable of doing whatever I turn my hand to. All I need is the knowledge. There's a little side note, folks.
That's right. And, I say stuff like that to John all the time, and his response is, I know. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm like, well, I am too, just so you know.
Yeah. But that's it. But people have been conditioned now to, it's almost like now we live in a world that works backwards, and it's just like, you've been conditioned to a certain way of thinking, a certain way of behaving, and actually you're not doing yourself any favors. So.
No. And I will say, now you've done a lot of studying on this, and we're definitely going to go over this in just a second, but in the short time that I've known John, he's changed my way of thinking 100%. And I can't thank you enough for that. Now, what all studying have you done and training?
I guess for me, I would label it into 6 areas. And so, folks, I'm not a big one on labels because they create judgments. but for me, it's psychology, philosophy, art, history, theology, and business. And I've been studying those. Heck, I was studying business even when I was 15 years old. Now that I think about it, it was one of the first things that I did when I left school, that I went into further education for. And a lot of it is both, academic study, and it's also real life experience. And that's, it's a really incredible thing when you can actually sit down with, a person who might be a doctor, and you can have a conversation about psychology, but equally in the next breath, you can then, again, like we're doing, you can have the same conversation with the same person about divine spirit or Native American spirituality or whatever it might be. And it's a really amazing thing. So for me, I think that's, when I began looking at myself and my life last year, it was like, wow, you're actually doing this, and you've been doing this subconsciously without knowing for all of these years. And as a result, now you're helping people all over the world with, even on a small scale, small level, with all of this stuff that you've been studying.
Yes. And, anytime I have a question, I'm given an answer, but I'm given the source to go find it every time. And I've never met someone so spot on as I have you. And again, I'm so thankful for our friendship. Now you're doing the mentoring, correct?
Yep.
Now it's one-on-one mentoring.
It is. It's a combination, and I think where we're going to be certainly moving into is probably more group mentoring and group coaching, because what you find is, in the words of Bon Jovi, the names and faces change, but the situations rarely ever do. You've a lot of people now that have been conditioned that they need to take a pill, for a variety of things, without actually looking, really at what's going on. My mentoring, and even with that phrase, it's like, okay. Because again, as we've talked, there's a lot of coaches out there that are trying to guide people. And unfortunately, the coaches end up in worse situations than the people who are actually coaching. And that was a big eye opener for me when I started this. So I always try to get to the root cause of everything that's going on. If someone comes to me and says that they've got anxiety is one of the biggest, sometimes actually one of the biggest killers, believe it or not, for people around the world, because of how they're using their mind. People need to know that anxiety, I can sum it up for you in one sentence. You don't need to go to a doctor for this. Anxiety is something that we birth. It is not something we're born with. You may have an anxiety strand from a psychological point of view, but anxiety is a fear of the future, a fear of the past. It's a fear of what could be, fear of what has been. And when it's how you're using your mind. It's how you're conditioning your mind. As you and I have talked, and this is one of the first times I've ever spoken about this, live, I was having anxiety attacks so much. When I was a youth minister, when we were building the art school, because I was terrified of being around people. And it got serious. I mean, it got to the point where it was like borderline personality disorder, PTSD, and that's what leads into other things. Why? Why is so many people having this issue? Because they're not dealing with their own inner engineering. When you start to realize, hey, wait, you've actually got the power within you to start doing something about this, as opposed to being told, well, you've got a course on anxiety management, you've got a course on stress management, you've got a course on depression management. Folks, I've got news for you. You shouldn't be managing these things. This is not normal behavior. But this is what's been conditioned into the human mind, the human consciousness, and particularly with teenagers now. So I suppose to get back to your question, it's something I think we do more, or we're looking to do more with groups. Because again, so many of them will come and say, John, we're struggling with anxiety. Right, okay. What are you putting into your head? Who are you hanging around with? What are you watching? What are you listening to? How much time are you taking off? What is the root cause of all that's going on? And, I think the majority of health problems out in the world right now can be summed up with three things. Your food, of course, your diet. So that's your food, your water, who you surround yourself with, and also what you're allowing into your head, i.e. TV, music, radio, news, all that kind of stuff, because you're being programmed by every single thing that you do. So choose to program yourself, in a better way. And once you realize you can do that, it's like, wow, no anxiety attacks now for over a year. And I was having sometimes 6 or 7 a day. So, it's like, folks, I am the proof in the pudding in a lot of ways. And, yes, we're just starting out, but it's like, you can either go to a doctor who's going to pill you up and stop you from being the amazing divine you that you are, or it's like, try and find the root cause of everything that's going on and take back control of your own life. So I just think too many people always look for external solutions to the internal problems.
That's a big statement right there. And a very true one. Man, I've got a couple of things I want to touch on from that one.
Go for it.
The food, and of course, you already know why I'm touching on this, but what types of food should we be putting in our body?
It'd probably be quicker to tell you the types of food that you shouldn't be putting in your body, to be honest with you.
Whatever you think.
So that the foods that you really shouldn't be putting in your body, again, obviously things that are, and we're not talking, folks, about, strict diets or anything like that, because again, I don't believe in diets. It needs to be something that's sustainable. So if anybody is watching that's trying to do a weight loss program, make sure whatever you're doing is something that's sustainable, and make sure you've got exercise or movement, whatever phrase you want to call it, and that can be as simple as going out for a walk or going up down the stairs 15 times. You have to have the combination in there because we were not made to be static. So in terms of your food and things, you ideally want to be eating as many, I suppose, good and nutritious things as possible. So your salads, they're a big thing. Be very wary of the oils that you're cooking in. Be very wary of the kind of beverages that you're consuming, how often you're consuming them. Stay away. You can have them obviously as a treat and whatnot, but things that are high in sugar. We had someone actually that was on one of our teen life coaching courses that had a really bad problem with acne. And after the course and everything had finished, we were just chatting, and they brought it up and they said, because my business partner is more a holistic life coach than I am. And she specializes in nutrition. And we just said, what is your diet like? The first thing that they came out with was the amount of chocolate they eat. Chocolate is high in fat. Chocolate causes a lot of spots and acne. If you're going to have a sweet, have it with your dinner. So basically, anything that you're putting in there, high meat content as well, be very wary of acidic products, because that is going to cause problems within your body because your body can't break it down properly. So again, it's about, as my wife would say, have as much color on your plate as possible, so you can have your meat, but have a salad with it. And be very, very aware as to what you're eating. But the most important thing you can do is to do the research, really do the research, so again, seeds, nuts, salads, spinach is a really tasty salad, because I'm not a big fan of salads, folks. I'm not a big fan of veg, but when it's done in a right and proper way, then it's like brilliant. And what I found, Joe, is since I started adopting all this, the majority of the pain has gone in my body, which is great. My body was diagnosed with colitis when I was 15 years old, which is basically ulcers on your intestine lining. Excruciatingly painful, can become cancerous, and can cause your bowel to burst. So it's a really painful thing if it isn't treated. The scary thing is, for a lot of people, they are struggling with this now more and more, and younger and younger. That tells me there has to be a link within their diet. And the reason I know this is because when my body was ill with a cold, and I was basically in bed for, I don't know, maybe a week or two, because it literally just wiped me out, I didn't have any symptoms of colitis at all, and I was taking 0 medication. When I started to eat again and drink again normally, that's when the signs of colitis came up, which has to mean there is a link with your diet and your food and everything else. So, you really do the research and make sure that you do the research for your body type as well. I hope that answers the question for sure.
Absolutely. Now, okay, well, I hope you're doing better with that. I'm pretty
Oh
sure
yeah,
that you're doing
definitely.
pretty well. Yeah. Um, Now, this is totally jumping subjects, but you know me.
Cool with that. I have a reputation for doing that myself.
But you know how you were talking about, just everything that you've done. I want people to realize how much you have done and how fast you've done it in. You reached out, or maybe I reached out. I don't remember.
I actually found the other day, Joe, because I know sorry, I was just going to say, because I know we were struggling to remember how we met. I think it was from the new Psychology of Winning group that I was in as a result of speaking on that platform with Bob Proctor, Les Brown, John Asiraf, back in November. I think that's how we connected.
Is it?
I
I don't
think so.
know. I have no idea, but I'm so happy that we did. Um,
Absolutely.
but we worked together just a little bit. I played a small part in the Christmas special that you did. But y'all, like, he had this idea and then completed in like what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think it was like 11 days. And it was, I think, because I think it was maybe Freddie that I was talking to last night about this. And I was just like, yeah, I think actually on Christmas Day, we were still or Christmas Eve, I think it actually went out on Christmas Eve. And we were still doing the final edits on Christmas Eve, waiting for people to bring in their footage and everything. But we got it done. It was really special.
I thought it was just beautiful.
And you had a big part to play in that as well, in terms of bringing contacts and people together. I only thought of it and visualized it as a small thing. And before we knew it, it was like, okay, we've got a former X Factor singer, we've got this, we've got that. And it's like, okay, let's do it.
I know. And I hope we get to do that again. That'll be so much fun.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
just bigger and better each time. But you know, the point of me saying that was it doesn't have to take a long time to get your vision out and completed. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. To give you a prime example, when I started going through my life changes last year, it was so it started in January. I didn't come back to work until February, and I had the notion and idea to do something working with youths in some form of youth mentorship. I had one meeting with a friend of mine that I'd worked with in the celebrity world, the entertainment world. And before the meeting was done, she was like, okay, I'm your business partner. Whatever you need, I'm here. Let's do this. Because she had the same vision 8 years prior. And then what I found was so many doors opened. And I can't tell you this enough. So just to give you a quick rundown of last year, I start working with Laurie Bischoff, which if you're a WWE fan, is the wife of Eric Bischoff. I now produce her show on a weekly basis. And bear in mind, Laurie and I had really only touched. We'd done a couple of shows before, but nothing in terms of working together. We had our Mind, Body, and Soul podcast that came out, 25 episodes of that I had filmed the year before. I began working with the Los Angeles Tribune. I released my first book. I start working on the Art Through the Ages novel series. We're doing paintings here, there, and everywhere, and this is all happening actually with zero stress. And people are like, how the heck could you? Oh, by the way, I started studying a BSc in psychology as well. Just throwing that out there. But people are always like, how can you do this and be zero stressed? And it's like, the simplest way that I can tell you that is because life isn't what happens to you, it's how you choose to respond. And you can choose to respond really stressed, really worked out. That's when your mind is out of control. Or you can, again, really focus your mind on what's going on. You can listen to the audiobooks on this subject. There are very, very specific ones that I use a lot. And begin doing your own inner engineering. And you can create all these things. At one point, I had 25 projects in a week that I was dealing with. And it was like, okay, you start at 5 o'clock in the morning. You sometimes finish at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Then you got to, have dinner, family time, all that kind of stuff, in between. And it's just like, okay, the year before I was so stressed out of my brains, I told my midsection through stress, you can worry yourself sick. It is possible. I know, I did it. Whereas last year I had more on my plate with zero stress. There was very little. And even now, it's just like, okay, we're doing this. And don't get me wrong, it takes some time for that aligning period to happen. But when it does, and you respond calmly to everything else, we had our best financial year last year. And I genuinely believe, it is a lot on how you use your mind, because literally what you believe will come to pass. If you believe you're no good and you can't do this, guess what? That's what's going to happen. If you believe you don't need money and you don't want money and that money is the root of all evil, guess what? You won't have it. And it is that simple. I know it sounds so simple, but believe it or not, nothing is actually too good to be true when you start to operate from this different playing field. So, and this year we've got a lot more on. It's happening a lot more rapid than what I thought. But at the same point, it's like, okay, dude, you need to really get your head in the game. And I'm just about there now. It's sort of in that aligning period. And sometimes when you go through it, it can be a spiritually painful experience. But once you hit onto that other side, it's like, here we are.
Yes.
But I like to do a lot of things.
Like you said, it all is simple, though. And that's something that I had trouble wrapping my brain around, was that it's really just that simple. Yeah. And you helped me to see that as well. But
I think a lot of people think it's more complicated than what it actually is. Even in the world of business, I think people make it more complicated because they themselves, to be grammatically correct, their life is complicated. So therefore they think it's complicated. And anytime, a lot of these other people are then teaching, they make it sound really complicated. Business is nothing more than having a product or a service or something and building relationships with people, knowing how much you want to earn and finding those people that are going to buy it. Yes. It really is that simple, and talking to people backwards and forwards.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
Teaching is nothing more than standing there telling people what you're doing. That's simple.
You're exactly right. And okay, whew, you blow my mind every time. So for one, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell people what you recommend that they do during COVID, and some are on lockdown, some are on not. What do you recommend that they do to stay happy?
I think the first thing that people need to do to stay happy and to stay joyful is turn off the news. If there is something that you need to hear, I guarantee you will hear it. Because social media being what it is now, the internet being what it is now, you almost can't escape unless you just don't switch it on, you switch everything off. But even then, heck, I mean, certainly around here, the newspapers, people are out and about, they're talking, you will hear it from somebody. I think that's the first thing. So you got to turn off the news, realize that it is designed to make you miserable, because that's what, again, you have been conditioned to. It used to be designed where, certainly in the United States, you would hear, it was a connection between you and the government. I was going to call it Parliament because that's what we've got over here in the UK, but that's what it was designed. Oh yeah, but being international, you've got to learn all these different terminologies and even heck down to the spelling of things. But that was the thing. Over here, it was actually to report on the royal family and what they were doing. Then they realized, hey, nobody's really buying our papers. We got to do something about this. So they started making up miserable news. They started reporting miserable news. And that's what started to sell, whether it was true or not. You then get to a point where you've got a miserable society. Why? Because they've been conditioned that way. It's all conditioning. So the first thing that I would definitely suggest that people do is switch off the news. The second thing is, it's coming into spring. I know you guys in the United States have had some horrific storms. Over here in Scotland, it's bizarre because it's been spring-like temperatures, which is not a good sign at all from an environmental point of view, because usually January, February is the time where we get our stormiest, highest weather. We've had spring-like symptoms and warmer weather over here, which means that there is a serious balance shift that's going on. It could be a blip. Let's hope it is. But the second thing you can do is to get out with nature. Switch off your phones. I think all too often, you can actually have such anxiety that's going on because all the time you're on your phone. Guess what? It is not doing your eyes any good to have this light pouring into your eyes all day, every day. And I think the third thing, quite honestly, is stop seeking external solutions for internal problems. Start realizing that you have the power within you to actually heal your body. Your brain is designed in this way. But the reason that you are not told this, or not told how to do this, is because the pharmaceutical company in the United States in particular, and Canada and Australia, I think actually in Scotland, we are probably the only little country in the world that doesn't pay for prescriptions right now, because of our government. Now, when you start to absorb that and you start to take that in, it's like, okay, I've had a client of mine who's been on antidepressants now for 10 years. And I said to her right at the beginning, I said, have you ever been tested for depression? No. Then how do you know you're depressed? It's like, now, if it's a clinical depression, okay, it's all about your serotonin levels, and that needs to be adjusted. But if it's a feeling of depression, then that is something else. So those are the three things that I would recommend. Turn off the news, get out with nature. Obviously, stop being on phones and social media as much, and then stop seeking external solutions to internal problems. Because if you're looking to be happy, or if you're looking to be in love, or if you're looking to be prosperous, or if you're looking, whatever it is, it all begins with you. Everything that is there all begins with you. It has to. It doesn't start anywhere else.
Come on, brother.
But that's the thing, that you have been conditioned to always look externally. The amount of people now that are going on dating apps because they're looking for love, but they're looking for love with the same people that are looking for love, that are going on these dating apps that are designed to keep you there, because otherwise they don't have the money. It's like, guys, you've got to figure this out, and you are capable. Everybody is capable of this. If you can think, if you have an independent thought, you really are capable of this. And it's no different from creating a chapter in a book to creating a painting on a canvas. That you've been conditioned to believe that you can't do it. You can. I used to have that with art students. They used to come and say, oh, well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. And I said, right, sit down, pick up the brush, watch this. You're going to take some blue paint and you're going to put it all over your canvas. Can you do that? Yeah, right, brilliant. Then we're going to take some black paint and we're going to paint some triangles. Can you do that? Yeah, right. Next, we're going to, and I would literally walk them through step by step. And within 2 hours, they usually had, depending on the project, but they usually had something that resembled a mountainscape or a seascape or a forest. And all of a sudden they started being like, wow, I actually can do this. I'm like, yeah, if you can do it with this, imagine what else you could do it with. And that's where it began for me. I was like, okay, if I've started doing this in my mind and I'm now developing in such a way. I studied 4 university in some of the major universities actually in the United States last year while all this was going on. And I was like, okay, if I can do this with the mind, what else can I do this in? Whatever you turn into a study, you can actually make real, because it's nothing else than a study. I'm rabbiting away. So go for it,
I'm loving it. And, I've had a few ideas come in my head that we're going to talk about.
I'm excited.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Wow. Yes. People create their everything. Yes. I'm sorry, my brain is still off on the idea that came in my head.
Make sure to write it down, because otherwise it just disappears. I find that all the time. 60,000 thoughts in a day, and it's hard to just pick one to stick with.
You say that to me often, 60,000 thoughts in a day.
Yeah. I think it's more personally, but it's, because your brain is just constantly firing like this, and it's what it's designed to do. That's when people say to me, oh, I'm trying to get my mind quiet. It's like, you can only do that when you're dead. You realize that, don't you? That's true. The reality. Your brain is doing what it's designed to do.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right. Now, okay. Do you have anything else coming up this year or in the next few months? Because you're going to come back in a few months, because the last three statements that you just said is a show in itself, and we've got to touch on it at some point. So in the next month or two, do you have anything else coming out that we missed?
I don't think so offhand. Certainly going into the spring, we're going to be finalizing the edits and getting all the stuff ready for the book release in November. I'm then beginning, in fact, I've already begun the Battles Teenagers Face, which is not just for teenagers, but it's for everybody. This is updated material, and it's what people are facing in 2022. And there's a lot of it, obviously, with sexual identity, people thinking their identity lays in one area, and it's like, guys, it doesn't. You're a million miles off. It doesn't lie with your religion, doesn't lie with your gender. It doesn't identify with your politics. You are so much more. That's one tiny part of it. But there's like 52 chapters that are going to be in this book, all that are a page or slightly more. But it breaks it down in such a simple way with all brand new artwork as well. So that's going to be coming out, all being well, this year into next year. I know you and I have talked a little bit about doing a show together that's going to be designed for teenagers and also for parents as well. Jo's just doing a little dance there because she's really excited. But it's designed to help bridge the gap, and that's the name of the show. And it's to help parents understand teenagers and help teenagers understand parents, because there is such a gap that's there, to actually help them understand really what's going on, because different ages, you're going to have different ways and thinking and conditioning patterns for that. But aside from that, aside from writing, aside from studying, aside from painting, I don't think there's anything major that's coming out in the next sort of couple of months that I know of. That may change tomorrow, who knows? But right now,
at this moment, well, like I said, remind me, we've got something to talk about. You might have something coming up in the next few months.
I'm intrigued.
I love it. When John and I start talking, it's literally like a never-ending conversation. Since we started talking, it just ideas, and like what I want people to take away is the word that you've used so many times. It's simple. You can create everything, or you do, but a lot of people don't want to accept that, because then they have to accept that they've created the bad as well.
Yeah.
But when you have an idea that you want to act upon, and you start putting it out there, the pieces start to line up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's something that you've shown me as well. That's huge. And I'm just, yes, I'm so thankful that you're on the show, for one. But
me too.
To work with you on everything, and to get you out there, because you do have so much to offer people, and it's truly, truly amazing. Now, how does people need to go about getting in touch with you?
It's nice and simple these days. We've got one page for basically the majority of stuff that we do. You can head to thejohnmorris.co.uk, and you can find me on Instagram at thejohnmorris as well. And again, it's all inspirational, motivational, or educational in some form. We've made it super simple for people to access what we do. And if you do find yourself getting stuck, or you don't know where to go, or you're like, could you do this? Then just drop us an email and one of the team will answer. It's that simple.
Love it. I love it. I just had, gosh, okay, yeah, we're definitely going to talk. But that's how it happens with him. It's just he's talking, and it's like, boom, you get kind of a sidetrack in the head with an idea.
But it's always the way, and to follow what you were saying, because I know a lot of people say, well, okay, they have an initial idea, and I just, I suppose, and so always want to close that section with this, is the importance is staying with the idea. If you've got it in you to write a book, chances are you'll know what that book is about. And if you don't, that's when you start listening and going within. I didn't know when I began the Art Through the Ages series that it was going to be a series of 13. I didn't know that there was going to be 2 spin-offs that was happening right after the first book. But I started writing, And all of these characters started to present themselves to me. And it was like I'd known them for years. And I was like, okay, rather than me telling your story, how about you tell me your story? And that's what they did. And I sat down, started doing all of this, and it was the coolest thing ever. Then one leads to the next, and then so on and so on, so on. But you've got to stick with that idea. You can have like 15 ideas going all at once. I do. I like variety. I'm not someone that just likes to do one thing. But at the same point, it's like you got to follow through on what's going on. And if you don't like what's going on in your life, you can change it as simple as that. Just by saying, okay, that's it. I'm moving on. I don't want to work with that person anymore. Or I do want to work with that person. I want to write this book. I don't want to write this book. You know, you're making choices all day, every day. And when you realize that you basically, every decision that you have made has brought you to this exact moment right here, right now, everything that you have chosen. And you can also then choose how to change everything as well. It's simpler than people think. It's just, you got to figure out, you want to start a business, figure out how to start the business. All the information's out there.
So true. So true. Oh my gosh. Okay. So last thing, and then I want you to help me with something that I didn't even tell you I wanted you to help me with. So surprise. Okay. But I want you to tell people, in your opinion, the importance of being kind.
I think it's absolutely fundamental, because opportunity doesn't reflect a person, it reveals them. And I think at the end of the day, if you're being unkind to someone, and obviously we've talked about this, and you know, your revelation about being kind, which was a phenomenal one. And if you have never shared that story, I would definitely recommend that you do. But it reveals, your kindness says more about you as a person than it does about anything else. And again, if you're choosing what you become, then why not choose the positive stuff? Why not choose, you know, to be kind, to actually care about others? Again, it's all a choice, even if you don't feel like it. But it is absolutely fundamental, I think, because it's a revelation on you as a person more than anything else.
Yes, yes. We love some kindness up in here.
Oh, yeah. And it can change absolutely everything. You know, the fastest way to diffuse anger is with love. You know, if someone's giving you anger and you give anger back, well, that's just going to explode the situation. Again, people don't know this. So
very, very true. Respond, don't react. That's something I have to remind myself of sometimes.
And observe the situation, don't partake of it.
Yes, there you go. There you go. I need to remind myself of that one at times as well.
One day I'm going to come out with a little booklet of John Morris quotes or something, and they'll all be nicely written. So
yes. Okay, so everybody, y'all go show John some love, follow him, share his stuff. Even if you don't like the person, we're going to be kind. We're going to share that stuff. You're going to definitely keep an eye out for his new book coming. Of course, he's going to be on this show, and I haven't even asked him yet, so I'm going to be bold and make this statement. He's going to be on this show at least once a month until then to get it promoted.
Sounds good.
And
it sounds good. We have a lot of content to put out there. I think we're going to be doing a lot of stuff together. So
yes. And you know, February is the month of love. And so I want to bring you on definitely, and us do a little segment on that as well. That's going to be my points in February. So I'm excited, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But
that's cool.
I want, if you don't mind, because I didn't even bring this up to you, I want you to please, because today's a big day for myself and for Freddie Vellante, also Fred Smith. Would you tell people your experience with him so far? Because you just met him.
Yeah, literally, actually, within the last 24 hours. You know, Folks, I got to tell you, working with the LA Tribune, working with Mooper, working with folks in Hollywood, there is a lot of folks there that will promise you the earth, and very few of them deliver. And again, if you've had experience and long enough in business, you'll know this yourself. But what I found with Freddie last night, we're talking to him. Normally, I'm very, very good at being able to sense a person and whether they're being honest and genuine and straight up, or whether they're full of garbage, and you can spot it. And the reality for me was, I did not sense anything during that meeting about Freddie that I questioned at all. It was a thoroughly enjoyable meeting. He was really, really busy yesterday, and yet he still took the time out to say, dude, I'm free. Can we jump on a call? And he's like, when are you free? I was like, now, let's do it. And we must have sat there for about half an hour. Now, Freddie's really intense, don't get me wrong, and he will swear like a sailor. But at the same point, like we do, he will get you from where you are to where you want to be. And, for me, what I've experienced just in this tiny, tiny part with Freddie, he knows his stuff. And that's really encouraging.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
I'm sorry, you got me tickled when you said he'll swear like a sailor, because it's true.
It's true.
But it shows that you truly, to be successful, in my opinion, and I believe in yours as well, you not only know that it's possible, but you stick to being yourself.
Yes.
No matter what level you're on.
Folks, there you go. There's a proof. I used to do these shows, actually. My business partner, or one of them, said, well, you dress like a Victorian. And I was like, yeah, I know, because of some of the stuff that we were doing a couple of years ago. And I started doing videos just dressed down in a shirt, and I was there with my glasses on, everything. And it felt so weird. And then I put these back on. I don't know, it feels like almost something divine and like a big comfort thing when I do it. And of course, as we know, you respond best when you're in your comfort zone. You don't respond best when you're out of your comfort zone, because you're always trying to get back into it. But yeah, you have to be who you are, and you can be successful being who you are.
Yes.
I could go on forever.
And I love it. I love it. So I want y'all to, for business, reach out to John. If you just want to give him a big shout out, definitely comment on these. But again, like, subscribe, share to all of John's things. We'll make sure and have the links to everything with the video. And then again, like, subscribe, share to the show as well. But if there's any topics that you want John and I to cover specifically, that you really have some deep questions about, I want you to put them in the comments so we can go over them and make that happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Because John's going to be on this show a lot, and he has so much to tell.
I was just going to say, just to follow up that, folks, don't be nervous about putting things in, because for the Bridging the Gap show, one of the two segment, or one or two shows that we did was actually about the LGBTQI and should it be taught in schools. We research it thoroughly. It may not be to your liking or your taste. That's okay. But you can guarantee that we will research it and actually do, the due diligence, to make sure it's as accurate as possible. Yes. And
if you're just so afraid or have any mixed emotions about having your name attached with that question, just send one of us a message and we'll review it there to make you more comfortable.
Definitely.
So we can still address it, but we're more than happy to. And this is, I'm totally putting John on the spot because I didn't tell him this, but he's going to be a recurring guest, like I said, once a month, and we're going to make this happen and get him promoted and show him some love, because bless his heart, in order for him to have a show with me, it's like pulling teeth sometimes. And it's
both
nothing.
So busy, that's the thing.
Yes. We do have a lot going on, but this is very important, and we're both growing in wonderful ways. And it's been nothing but a joy to watch you grow and experience everything. But I think like you're gonna be up here, but you just wait right here right now, because the sky's the limit, and then some.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's all about raising that level of consciousness, and you know, it's interesting. One day, I think we'll do a show of what I was like before these changes and things, and what happened last year, because it was nothing short of divinely incredible. Even family are like, what the heck happened to this guy? Because he's not the person that we actually had. Family that had to get to know me again as I am now. So I always refer to